Namaste, greetings and blessings, and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts. This is our Sunday message, and I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, the founder and spiritual director of this center. And I invite you to watch not only this Sunday message, but any of our archived messages. I invite you to join any classes or events that we have going on. I invite you to reach out and email if you have any questions. Questions about this community, questions about me, questions about what we do, or questions about this science of mind and spirit, liberation theology that we practice and teach. And if by chance you find yourself seeking beloved community with other like-minded beings, even if you already belong, are a member of another community, church, or center, you are more than free to have multiple affiliations wherever you are fed and find community. You are invited. And lastly, feel free to click like, subscribe, and share this or any other message or announcements with others in your circle. And with that, much appreciation, love, and blessings. Enjoy the message. Namaste and greetings. How's it going? Yeah, I know. Like I feel like some something's going on. I feel like the no trespassing sign. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look for that later. But nonetheless, regarding that idea, today, what are we talking about? Yes, setting and honoring life affirming, healthy boundaries. As I said before, there's a lot going on, and the boundaries are being pushed against. So, this week, we are going to once again explore the idea, the concept, the practice of what it means to set and to honor healthy, life affirming, effective boundaries. And to do so, it always begins with one. What is a boundary? This thing called boundaries, what are they? We throw the word around. What is it? Once we know what it is, then we're invited to establish it. How do we do that? What does it mean to do that? How do we set it up? How do we know if it's a healthy boundary versus an unhealthy boundary? How do we know? Are we able to discern the difference? Breathe. Just in brief, boundaries are the ways in which we take care of ourselves, the ways in which we take care of others. A generative boundary protects and enhances. Say again. It protects and enhances one's life and gives us the ability to move towards even greater, even more nourishing forms of living and adapting and evolving with all that is going on around us, to us, through us, as us. So, are you willing to learn how to stand in your wholehearted, full bodied yes when it is a yes, and a wholehearted, full bodied no when it is a no? Because that is part of what it means to establish, to set, and to honor healthy, life affirming, and effective boundaries. As Lorraine Nillen says, the more you value yourself, the healthier your boundaries are. The more you value yourself, the more you recognize your inherent worth, not because of anything you do or what you have in your bank account or how slim and sexy and bling. No, the more you value yourself simply because you are. The natural byproduct is the healthier your boundaries will be. Many of us are walking around with holes in our boundaries. We let certain people trespass. We let certain ideas and concepts trespass. But as I said a few slides ago in the beginning, the first thing we are going to do in order to, for example, what you see on your screen is a wooden fence. But it's not. Chain link fence. Well, in order to mend it, fix it, I have to be able to identify that this is not a brick wall, nor is it a oak, wooden slat fence, chain link. So let us begin with definitions. The definition of boundaries: the limits you establish to protect yourself, both physically and emotionally, in relationships and interactions. We're going to go even deeper than that in a moment, but this is the basic. The purpose is to define what is acceptable and healthy for you in those relationships and interactions in ways that protect your well-being. Now, one of the things we sometimes do is we'll set a boundary, we think it's healthy, and it's not. And technically what we are doing, we are engaging in isolation. Now, there are times that isolation, even such, can be life-affirming. When one needs to quarantine, it is a form of isolation. I am isolating the group of people who experience contagious with, we're isolating in general terms. But sometimes we think our boundaries are life affirming and healthy. And really, what we are doing, we are building walls of isolation to keep other people away from us for a variety of reasons. The definition of isolation: the state of being alone or separate from others, either physically or emotionally. And once again, we could add other things like spiritually. Is it possible to spiritually isolate yourself? Reasons for isolation sometimes can be due to things like social anxiety. My oldest son experiences social anxiety, so there are times where he will isolate himself in order to not be overwhelmed by. It's for his protection, but he doesn't do it simply to be, I don't want to be near anybody. I want everybody to leave me alone. It can also be due to low self-esteem, lack of social skills, feeling overwhelmed in certain social situations. It is not the same as solitude. While solitude can be healthy and necessary, and I wouldn't even say can, solitude is healthy and necessary at times. Isolation implies a lack of connection, the desire to be unconnected for whatever reason, and the desire to be and remain alone. Keep that in your mind as we go on. Alexis Pauline Gumbs offers us on the banks of the river, I surrender to the boundaries that land is teaching. Yes, I surrender to the demands of my dream for you and for myself, which is love, which is abundant rest, which is a visionary world that looks so much like a dream, but when you close one eye, it opens. When you open up this close to the edge, land holds you and water moves through you. And what you thought was closed off to you opens up like possibility. And the danger you thought would swallow you and everyone you love instead reclarifies who you are, updates your dreams, and waits to wake you with new purpose. If I can learn to sleep, it is because my dreams are yours and for you and of us. It is because my love is an ocean, but my path is a river shaped by and that will heal us if we let it. Breathe. Will we let it? Therein lies the key question. Will we let it heal us? Will we let the dream, the vision, move us and inspire us to action? Not just theoretical ponderings and musings, but to action. When we think of boundaries, being mindful, are they life affirming or non life affirming? Generative boundaries are intentional and adaptive, arising from a desire for desired experiences and ways of living, ways of existing and moving and being in the world. They delineate different ecosystems in life, similar to how natural boundaries, as we just heard, how natural boundaries like rivers or mountains separate one ecosystem from another in nature, and yet they're still connected. Protection and enhancement, like a cell boundary, protects and enhances the life of the cell. Generative boundaries in personal life protect and enhance one's well being, one's ability to live, move, and thrive. Enabling generosity. Counterintuitively, boundaries can facilitate generosity by clarifying what is and is not acceptable, which allows for more meaningful interactions and a stronger, more full bodied yes to varied desired experiences. And lastly, building self worth. Boundaries generate and enhance self worth, and self worth in turn generates more life affirming and healthy boundaries. Breathe. When we establish boundaries around our home, do we establish them to ensure that no one can get in and we are keeping them out? Or do we have the means by which at certain times we can welcome? When we establish boundaries, are we more focused in the separation? Or do we allow for moments of interaction? There are some boundaries that are set that are dangerous to even attempt to cross. And they serve a very specific purpose. Are we attempting to harm others who attempt to trespass, quote unquote? Are our boundaries dangerous to others? Which, in essence, such as this electric fence, it doesn't matter if I, the one who set it up and turned it on, doesn't matter if I touch it or if someone on the other side touches it. We both will get electrocuted. Certain non life affirming boundaries are harmful to the person who established the boundary in the first place. Once again, do the boundaries cause harm to anyone, to everyone, potentially? Or are we finding ways to be more open, even in such a thing as these dangerous boundaries? There's a doorway to get in and out, but is it welcoming? I mean, if you walk up to someone's house and their house is covered in barbed wire and an electric fence, I don't care what the front door looks like. I don't know that I actually want to walk up to this house. Breathe. Because it's important for us to be mindful of what are my boundaries and what is the energy my boundaries exude. Does my does the energy push people away, or does the energy simply stand as a I know where the front door is and I know that it's approachable? Even if the front door is closed, I know I can approach and knock. And if the person does not answer, I leave. I don't bang. I respect the boundary of the closed door. I ring the bell. There's no response. I respect the boundary and I leave. I may return later, but I respect the boundary. Do we have boundaries established in such a way that people can see them, feel them, acknowledge them, approach, but then realize, not now, and leave and return at a later time? Even when the door is open, in most instances, depending on who the person is, you know not to just simply walk in. You still respect the boundary, the threshold of what's outside and what's inside. Prentice Hemphill says, we have to be careful because inauthenticity can receive greater rewards than authenticity. Learning to be authentically ourselves can help us set generative boundaries. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and myself simultaneously. And we often think of boundaries as negative, but in reality, they are a necessary part of honoring and healing and celebrating ourselves. Now, based on what is being said here, in what ways do we reward inauthenticity more so than authenticity? Are there times that I do this? Because if I can't discern the difference, then how do I know if I'm engaging in it? Which means, how do I know if my boundaries are authentic in what I am setting them for and to do? Now, once again, there are various ways that we self protect, various ways that we lock others out. And yes, it's a form of protection. Got that? Yes. But are we mindful that there are times when we don't need to lock other people out? There are times when our boundaries should be flexible enough to welcome people in. So it's worth our time to sit back and say, how do I lock people out? Which locks me in, but how do I do this? In what way do I set that as part of the thing? Yes, there's a fence. And then I turn on the electricity to add to. Yes, the door is closed, but then I put a bolt on and a door stopper to add to as reinforcement to keep someone or something out and keep me in. Am I aware of how that shows up emotionally, financially, in my relationships with family, friends, neighbors, etc.? There are all kinds of ways that boundaries show up in our lives, right? Like if I were to ask anybody, oh, you like boundaries? Yes. You like locked doors? Yes. Electric fence? Yes. Alligators in a moat around the, yes. Piranhas? Yes. Okay. So how about we put you in a room with no windows and no windows and no walls, no windows, no doors, no way in, no way out. Cool for you? How many people are going to say yes? What do you mean? No windows, no doors, no, it's just a box. Well, the funny thing is, yes, it's just a box. And that box has another name called a vault. Like this box, which is used to put a casket in and then sealed and then buried. There's no way in or out, technically. Is that what we're talking about? That's the kind of boundaries we. Wait. Recently, what was it? Juneteenth. What is that? Oh, emancipation from, oh, the effects of slavery. And oh, did you know that one of the tools or some of the tools that were used as boundary keepers were these devices that were put on the necks and throats of the enslaved to restrict their motion, to restrict their freedom? It's a boundary. It's a lock. It's a way of keeping them in place, much like a brand. Heat it up and burn it into them so that others will know where this human being belongs. I am marking what I am deeming my property. See, boundaries, the restrictiveness shows up in a great many ways. And what all of these non life affirming boundaries result in is a form of death. They are symbols of death consciousness. They restrict us from living fully. We simply exist. We go from point A to point B. No joy, no passion, no bliss, no stepping into our divine magnificence. Simply move along. Monday through day by until finally last breath. That is not living or thriving. These kinds of boundaries are not life affirming or healthy. So, what are boundaries? Boundaries are a way of resetting power dynamics in relationships, of restoring our sense of agency and choice. Maybe most important, boundaries are how we shelter our authenticity, our real, true selves, and they are essential as we build relationships with one another. Boundaries are how we stay and feel intact. Balanced relationships do not require our escape or isolation. Balance is not a stagnant state. It too is a dance, an ever fluctuating way of being. There's an ebb and flow, a meeting in the middle. Relationship at its most mutual, most life affirming, most just is negotiated. That life affirming, healthy, effective boundaries. And one of the things we are invited to do is to do with our lives the similar thing that one does in an art gallery or in a museum when you have 500 pieces of art, 500 artifacts of history that the space, it can't hold all of that. So you curate, you select purposefully by design. What will I allow in? What will I put up? What will I display? What does it express? We do the same thing, or we are invited to do the same thing, as I said, in our regular everyday lives. How do we curate? How do we select? How do we demonstrate by choice what we are going to present to the world? And what is the purpose of, what is the intention for what we are curating? To select, to organize, to look after the items in a collection, to look after the various parts of our lives as our life is an exhibition. To select how we will perform and dance and move and navigate through this thing called life. To select, organize, and present using our divine wisdom, our divine knowledge, our authenticity. We have the opportunity to do the exact same thing with purpose, consciously choosing. We embody these ideas until they seem or until they are natural. Everything changes when our emotions are freed from the dictates of history, when we can relate in an undefended way and find a path. Here's the key point, and find a path to one another. See, boundaries are not about keeping away, they are about finding a way that is healthy and life affirming between one another. Breathe. So, just in general, how do you set boundaries? Self reflection, to notice and be aware, to choose, to decide, to put to use, to act, and to express by saying, to speak up. So, what are your values? What's important to you? Are you aware? Emotional intelligence, are you aware of what you feel when certain things are said or done or your boundaries are being challenged? And note, sometimes our boundaries can be challenged when we observe someone else's boundaries being challenged or ignored. You know what I'm saying? Oh, you want an example? For example, last month was Pride Month, so I'm going to take the Pulse nightclub massacre. I wasn't there, but when I heard about it, it hurt. Why? Because it was about other people's lives being taken in a senseless act of violence. Their boundaries were completely obliterated. And what happens to one of us happens to all of us. None of us are free until all of us are free. So the pain of that is felt. As I observe and hear the stories of their boundaries, I feel the push against mine. Are you willing to make the choices and express your boundaries? To tell people, no, you cannot tell those kind of jokes in my presence. I would rather you not tell them at all, but you certainly are not going to tell them in my presence. And if you're not going to leave, then I'm going to leave. Are you willing to stand in that and speak out? Breathe. So, the 4 C's of healthy boundaries are said to be clarity, compassion, consistency, and confidence. Felt like I was going to break into song. These principles help establish and maintain healthy, life affirming boundaries that then foster, as a byproduct, security and serenity, calmness, healthy relationships, and healthy personal development. And these show up in a variety of ways, right? Clarity. Your boundaries should be clearly defined and understood. Consistency. Boundaries need to be consistently upheld over time. Don't tell me don't cuss on Monday, but on Tuesday, it's too wishy-washy. Consistent. Confidence. Setting boundaries requires confidence in your own needs and values. It is important to stand firm in your boundaries even when you face pushback. I confidently And compassion, sharing your boundaries with others is crucial. Even if people can read your minds, so what? Don't wait for them to read your mind. Tell them, communicate to them what you need, what you value, and what your limits are, and do so effectively with clarity. I invite you to either screen capture this or come back to it later and read it more in depth, because we're not going to go over this in depth. I'm simply offering it to you as a greater resource that you may want to, read a little bit more on. Did you? Okay. Okay, good. We're ready. Let us go. Our boundaries define our personal space, which we could remix. Our boundaries define our mental space, our spiritual space, our financial space. And we need to be sovereign there in order to be able to step into our full power and potential. You said what? You said sovereign. What does that mean, sovereign? To be the ruler, to be the steward, to be the one who decides with authority and power that this is what is and is not. Yeah, I know that for a lot of us in New Thought who are codependent and people pleasers, it's like, but you're asking me, yes, if you want to set life affirming boundaries, then we must be sovereign in order to step into our full power and potential. Now, as I said, it's not just physical boundaries. There are all kinds of boundaries, all types of. And depending on who you ask, there can be 7, there can be 8, there can be 9. It varies, which is one reason why I'm showing you one says 7, one has 8. So you have physical boundaries, time related boundaries, boundaries related to one's sex and sexuality and such, related to touch and affection, emotion and work and finances, and there's all kinds of boundaries, all kinds. What do these look like for you? What does it mean for you to stand in your power, in your sovereignty with these, using clarity and confidence? And how do you tell someone, I don't like when you touch me there? Don't just walk up and hug me. You have to ask. I don't just no. I give you an elbow. What does it mean to have an intellectual boundary? Spiritual boundary? Like, when is the boundary that says, wait, what did the minister just say? Did they just say I'm going to burn in hell? For what? For going to see a Marvel movie? Oh, it's time to find a new church. No, that's God, that's nonsense. What? Wait, they said they voted for who? Oh yeah, no. Time to find somewhere else to be. No. Where's the integrity? No. They said what? I gotta sign over the deed to my house. Oh, you know what? I'm going to go be a Buddhist. I'm tired of this. What are the boundaries and how are you stepping into and engaging in? It says, I want you to do this Saturday for me. Already had plans, but because you don't want to disappoint them and you're so used to saying yes, you let your plans go and you do what you do. Why didn't you just, I'm already booked or I've already got plans, right? So take this all in, because the benefits to having healthy life affirming boundaries are such as these. It reduces burnout. improves our relationships. Stress is decreased, which means all of the harmful cortisol and stuff. Inflammation is reduced. Respect and admiration, honoring, and whatnot from self and others, and all kinds of things. So the rewards outweigh. Breathe. So, would you ever run into a fiery building? I mean, is that what you would choose to do? Why not? Oh, because it's fire. I mean, that makes sense. Okay. Then why are they? Because they understand how to navigate. They understand that in order to move through the boundary that fire is creating and the danger, they have a boundary of protective clothing, water, and a hose, and all the other equipment and such. How do we navigate the fires that show up in our lives? How do we resolve conflict while maintaining our boundaries? How do we navigate trauma while maintaining our boundaries? Let's see, hold on. You're blurry. You're not. Okay, let's hope. 3, 2. So breathe. The 4 C's of healthy boundaries are clarity, compassion, consistency, and confidence. These principles help establish and maintain boundaries that foster security, calmness, and healthy development mentally, physically, spiritually, socially. It's a holistic thing. So, with clarity, make sure your boundaries are clearly defined and understood. Make sure you express them in a straightforward, clear manner. Be consistent. Once you start, maintain it. Don't waffle on the fence. Reinforce them even when it's challenging. Have confidence that your needs and values matter so that when there is pushback, you are able with confidence to stand firm and reassert your boundaries. Sharing them is crucial, but people cannot read your mind. And even if they can read your mind, don't trust that what they're reading is accurate. Their crystal ball might not be connected to the internet today. Their Ouija board might be cracked. Although if they're talking to you with a Ouija board. Anyway, don't assume. With compassion, express it to them. Okay? Okay. This next section is simply for your own information. If you want to screen capture it or come back and review it later, it's there just for added information regarding how to help raise children with healthy boundaries, etc. Just added information. Our boundaries define our, and it doesn't have to be personal space, right? Because it could be our emotional space. Okay, just being clear. Our boundaries define our personal space, and we need to be sovereign. Sovereign in order to be able to step into our full power and potential. Sovereign. You are the major steward of your life. You are the director, the producer, it's you. How are you running the kingdom of your life? Sovereignty. You have dominion and power. How are you using dominion and power as the sovereign of your life? How are you doing so? In order to better enable you to live your best life. Now, it said physical boundaries, right? And like I said, it doesn't have to be physical. There are all kinds of and all types of boundaries. For the sake of conversation, some will identify 8 and others will identify 7 and others will identify 14. Doesn't matter. The point is, the greater our clarity of any several of them gives us greater clarity into how do we establish emotional boundaries, time-related boundaries, spiritual boundaries, sexual boundaries, etc. How do we establish these? First, we've got to identify, well, what are they? What does it mean to have a physical boundary versus a time boundary? What does it look like in my life to have a spiritual boundary? What is an emotional boundary? Getting clarity on that first, and then saying, okay, if that's what it is, how do I establish it? Because when we have greater clarity, et cetera, regarding our boundaries, we benefit in many different ways. We have improved emotional health. We reduce the likelihood of burnout. Our relationships are improved, etc. So the benefits outweigh the fears of, technically, of not speaking up and not standing in your power to ensure that your boundaries, your needs are met and your values are honored. Now, with that, just for the sake of conversation, how likely is it that the average person would run into a fire? Not very likely. Even firefighters have protective boundaries. Firefighters have protective clothing, which gives them greater safety and protection against the flames. They have hoses and water and stuff to protect them, boundaries, keeping safe distance, etc., so that they can navigate. How are your boundaries giving you the ability to navigate the turmoil, the trauma, the fires that may stir up in your life, in your family, in your city, your state, your country, when there are fires popping up? And now I'm not talking about actual fires. You get what I'm talking about. Emotional fires, political fires, corruption fires, etc. How do you navigate them? And then we still have the idea of, we understand that ecosystems. We understand, oh, beach. Beach is made out of or covered in sand. Okay. And then at the edge of that is, oh, ocean. That's sand too, right? No. Oh, that's what. We understand this, which gives us the ability to navigate it appropriately, because we don't walk across the sand and get to the edge of the water and keep on walking as though we're walking on sand. We don't expect to walk on water. We don't expect it. We don't expect to simply keep on walking and all of a sudden turn and start walking in the sky. We don't expect that. We understand that in order to navigate various ecosystems and various terrain, we have to modify how we move and approach, etc. We understand this. But the thing is, we generally do not do this when it comes to our relationships, our finances, our health and well-being. Somehow we Tupperware it and segment it as though it's somehow different when it's not. Which is one reason why, when we are then bombarded with The massive amount of information we receive, whether it's social media, the news, the newspaper, our phones, etc., we are easily overwhelmed and we don't realize it. We have become so inundated that we are almost numb, even though the detrimental effects are still occurring. And it's because we don't know how to navigate the terrain of these ecosystems. And it starts with, what are your boundaries? What helps you feel safe? When we fail to set boundaries and hold people accountable, hold systems accountable, we feel used and abused and mistreated. This is why we sometimes attack these individuals. We attack who they are. We lash out, which is far more, in the grand scheme of things, far more hurtful and damaging than it would be to address the behavior, the choice in the first place. That's why, with clarity, compassion, confidence, etc., let people know so that you don't reach boiling point and then explode in a fit of rage because they're not respecting your boundaries. In the same way that we talk about curating, make sure that the massive amounts of information, or as some refer to it, the weapons of mass distraction, don't let them cause you to be stressed to the point that your health and well being now suffer. How do you curate and navigate all of this information, which, depending on where and how, it's a lot of non life affirming, or it stokes feelings that are non life affirming. It stokes feelings of fear and stress and frustration. And if we're not aware of it, then those feelings take over. Those feelings control us. They become sovereign. Breathe. An important piece to this whole idea is that when you change your behavior, people often, not everybody, but people often get angry. Growing up in a family of whether alcoholics, people who sold drugs, did drugs, etc. When you stop drinking or stop doing drugs or stop associating with or stop robbing, the people who are used to you being that get angry because you're not that anymore. So those who get angry when you set a boundary are precisely the ones you need to set a boundary for. Why are they angry that you are taking care of yourself? Right there is a red flag. Right there is clear indication that that is why you need the boundary. And once again, just as further to drive the point home, because sometimes when you tell people don't bring the latest political, I have select times when I engage in what's going on in politics or what's going on in the world or I have specific times. Sometimes people don't understand that. They don't respect that. And when you tell them, but it's important that you are clear that media overload is actually hurting your mental health. If you are overwhelmed with it, it is causing your mental health to suffer, which affects your physical health, your spiritual health, your relationships, etc. And this article is from 2022. There has been even more research to drive this point home and reinforce it. So I invite you, if you are curious to know more about this, to go to the go to the link and read the full article. So when people come to you, what do you do? When people bring stuff to you, what do you do? When people are not, what do you do? Pause. Pause and breathe and ground yourself, center yourself, reorient yourself so that you can then choose how do you want to respond. How do you want to respond in ways that are healing for yourself and others? How do you calculate the algebra of spirit regarding your relationships and regarding what it means to be authentically yourself? How do you navigate and adjust to ensure that your boundaries are supporting in life affirming and healthy ways your relationships and what it means for you to authentically be yourself? Important things, because as Prentice Hemphill, the author of this book, What It Takes to Heal, how transforming ourselves can change the world. Say again, how transforming ourselves can change the world. Prentice Hemphill says that it is important for us to really dive in to what it takes to heal, and not just healing individually, but collectively. Because, as this one segment says, this profound work delves into the intersection of personal healing and societal change, presenting a compelling case for why embodiment practices, healing, and social change go hand in hand, and why advanced trauma therapy training is necessary. Now, pause. This is one of the things I've been saying about New Thought in general, and why my push for Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0 is what it is. Because when people say New Thought has no business involved in sacred activism, they're missing what Prentice is pointing us to. Embodiment practices, healing, and social change go hand in hand. And if we're not engaging in trauma-informed spirituality, then how are we actually helping people create boundaries, navigate through trauma? Because simply telling someone, change your thinking, change your life, is not enough. Prentice goes on to say, healing in solitude eventually brings us home, only to realize that what causes us pain, what causes many others pain, are issues much bigger than our singular lives. And those issues remain. They remain until such time as we change the systems. That's why we say no one is free until everyone is free. Now, what is Prentice implying with this idea of, well, wait, much bigger than our singular lives? In other words, there is my experience. No, I'm not even going to use that. I'm going to use something that I recently got into an online kerfuffle over. Several weeks ago, Whoopi Goldberg and some of the co-stars, co-hosts of the show The View got into it. And it was regarding Iran and the possible war and stuff. And my understanding of listening to what Whoopi was attempting to say was, in counterbalance, that yes, women are treated horribly. Yes, gay people are treated horribly there. Yes, but women are treated horribly here too. Maybe not to that degree in the same way. Yes, women can wear a miniskirt here and not be stoned. Where there, yes, they'll be stoned. Yes, but we have issues here that we're not addressing. So before you start pointing at how bad they are, let's also address how bad we are and can be. In other words, Whoopi is saying, my singular life, my privilege, I'm wealthy, yes, and certain things don't affect me, but be mindful that there's a whole segment of the population a whole segment of Black people and gay people who are deeply impacted by homomisia, racism, etc. Before we before we go into telling other people how to fix their roof because it's leaking and their porch is sagging, shouldn't we fix our leaky roof and our sagging porch? So she's addressing that my singular life, while I have my own things, let's address and heal collectively. Prentice goes on to say that disconnecting from community and trying to heal on your own is often mistaken for healing, when in fact it is more about that person exerting control in order to stay comfortable. What if what we really need in order to heal is to come together and work on the issues at the core level, the consciousness level of the trauma that we've experienced? This is precisely why, if you've ever heard me quote S. Kelly Harrell, we don't heal in isolation, we heal in community. What if what we really need in order to heal and create a world that works for all is to come together and do the work at the level of consciousness that is creating the discord and disharmony? So we're healing it at the root and at the level of the symptoms and conditions. Prentice goes on to say, even when we are able to address trauma through individual healing, it's not enough. Only when we come together to shape, dismantle, and rebuild the world can we start to end the ongoing cycle of collective trauma caused by systems obsessed with profit and not the well being of all humans on the planet or the planet at all. We can't change the world if we do not heal what has become embodied in us. And we cannot truly heal if the conditions that break and isolate us don't change too. All life is about relationships, and relationships are social constructs. Our relationships are choreographed and curated by both history and cultural beliefs. It is hard to notice how history can invade each moment through habits and conditioning we've come to embody, how it can contour who we care for and our ability to really see one another. We inherit beliefs and patterns of relationships by watching how the people around us move, how they navigate, who is listened to and who is seen, who is lifted up and who is hunted down. We learn in this way who we are and who we have been in relationship to the world's other inhabitants, in relationship to one another. Being authentically ourselves. 3 skills are necessary to live a life free from the inherited scripts: authenticity, boundaries, and trust. Authenticity is about being our real selves, but it's not about personality. It's a way we decide to be, how we choose to interact with the world. It's a willingness, an ability to both be oneself and be in a state of discovery of who that really is. Our authentic selves aren't perfected or performed, it is achieved when we stop trying so hard to be who we think we should be or who we've been told we should be. So boundaries are fluid, flexible, relational. They are not demands on other people. They are not ultimatums. Boundaries require trust. And trust, like boundaries and authenticity, is not as simple as it seems. Just as Who and how we trust is often shaped by our interpersonal experiences. It is also conditioned in us through the way that society assigns values to people. Any society that ranks people based on race or gender or any other arbitrary characteristic teaches that trust should be allocated not by personal merit, but by how closely one conforms to social indoctrinated norms. Our relationships can be free from the expectations imposed by history and oppression when they are given more room, prioritized, and centered. So get real. Get curious about how your past has shaped you, how it has affected your edges, your boundaries. Are you willing to lay the scripts down for something else? To learn to love you, me, and others simultaneously? We have to be willing to show our soft underbellies, to be vulnerable, to be truly who we are, and to know where our edges are permeable, flexible, and where they are firm and solid. This is the ground of holy relationships. Breathe. So, my guppies, remember that boundaries are not meant to isolate you and make you relationship proof. They should serve to nourish, support, and enliven you to engage in mutually healthy, loving, and supportive relationships. They strengthen your ecosystem. Breathe. The Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0 offers us a path, a practice, and a way of living where the presence of our being is an active presence in the world, a healing presence, a transformative presence, and an evolutionary presence. As the embodiment of a world that works for all, as the embodiment of all that we are and all we can be as God, as the embodiment of all that we are and choose to be, we create the conditions that grace ourselves and others with freedom. Set free from the addictions to former indoctrinated ideas, those scripts, the beliefs, and those ways of being, and set free to live our lives on purpose, magnificently. We are the Amen of life. This week's affirmation, our declaration, I'll say it first, and if this resonates with you, I invite you to say it with me the second time. I create and maintain life-affirming, generative boundaries. Together. I create and maintain life-affirming, generative boundaries. And so it is. This week's journal questions or Thursday night study group questions. When are my boundaries life-affirming and when are they non-life-affirming? When do I bypass healthy boundaries or unhealthy isolation? In what way do I curate, or in what ways could I curate my life more effectively? What is the role of clarity, compassion, consistency, and confidence in my daily life? Remember what Prentice said. Prentice asserts that disconnecting from the community and trying to heal on your own is often mistaken for healing, when in fact it's more about seeking control and comfort. In what way does this relate to me? Ask yourself. And lastly, When I reflect on my life, how have both my understanding of and the implementation of boundaries, how has it changed over time and how has it remained the same over time? And the practice this week, drum roll please. Practice with someone how you might reassert a particular boundary. You told someone, don't touch my stomach. This happens to expectant mothers often. Someone will run, oh, you're spitting. Why? Don't touch my stomach. I didn't give you permission to touch my belly. Practice. How would you tell? Someone just did it. Black women often run into, oh, your hair is so, quit, what are you touching my hair for? Right? Uh, Someone does something, whatever that may be. The boundary of, didn't I ask you to put the toilet seat down? Didn't I ask you when the toilet paper's gone, put a new roll in? Whatever it is, practice with someone how you would muster up the courage, the confidence, the clarity, and the consistency to reassert any particular boundary. Practice. So we breathe into the space, simply addressing, simply embodying the awareness, the presence, the power, the wisdom, the intuition, the good of the universe, of God, of spirit. Recognizing that when we set and maintain healthy boundaries, it gives us greater capacity to expand into the truth of who and what we are as the divine expressing itself as us. Boundaries are not meant to limit us, but they limit the impact of the things that make us small, that make us stressed, that make us dim and darker and weaker and less aware and less empowered. And boundaries protect us from all of that. Boundaries set us free to be expansive and imaginative and creative and more loving. Boundaries set us free. They don't imprison us. Boundaries are the expression of the divine in, through, and as us. So we simply breathe in this moment, knowing that we have the opportunity to establish and set sacred boundaries that are for the good of everyone. Because as we are free, others are free. As we love ourselves, it changes. As Prentice Hall said, when we heal and transform ourselves, that healing and that transformation impacts and affects the greater community and the world as well. We don't do it in isolation. We do it in community, right here and right now. The law says yes. It acts upon this word as it acts upon all of our mental equivalents, saying yes to everything we think, feel, speak, and do with that energy and that consistency. And so in this moment, I declare, know that right here and right now, we are living the embodiment of our amen. And it's good. And so it is. And so it is. Much love and appreciation, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for messaging in the chat and clicking like and share and all that good stuff. I will either see you during the week or I will see you here next Sunday. Love you.